All right. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are acquiring and operating small software companies. We're doing it in public, trying to have as much fun as possible along the way, and we're doing it for the love of the game. Yeehaw. What's up, Kalu?
Oh man, hanging in there. We delivered so much this week. I'm almost like my brain is so heady right now. What do we need to talk about?
Yeah,
You know
totally.
what I'm
It's true.
saying? It's like that's what's happening. It's like, oh wait, what's my next call? It's been
Tremendous
one of those
output.
weeks.
It's been a hell of a week, honestly. Yeah, it's been a hell of a week, man. So I think and I've just been kind of just rinsing the Hormozy stuff, but it's just like, the thing that makes work fulfilling is how hard it is,
Yeah.
and then the other piece is kind of find the work where you lose sense of time. And I was like, damn, I've been super fulfilled by the work this week. And there were so many times where I was like, how long have I been in this? So I think those are all signals that we're doing the right stuff, but I'm excited. I think this is going to be a big breakout week. A lot of stuff going on in the portfolio, and kind of concluding our first year owning portfolio company one, and just jazzed and grateful, man. It's a good time. Anywho, today, what are we talking about? So we got an OKR teardown. The OKR is doubling our blog content velocity and social volume to identify impact to website traffic. So put simply, if we do more blog posts and more social posts, will more people come to our website? And then presumably the more people that come to our website, the more convert to trial users. The more that convert to trial users, the more we can get activated and converted to paid users. So it's the tippity top of the funnel, and it's obviously kind of an audience-led strategy. So let's look a little more explicitly on the OKR itself. So let's just deconstruct it real quick. So the objective, put simply, is 2x increase in blog content and social post volume to uncover impact on new site visitors. So I guess just to elaborate too, like I think there's, we're looking for some kind of correlation, which like the holy grail in go to market and in growth in general is coin operated, right? So if we do more, will we see more results? And I think we can assume that maybe, but there's probably going to be diminishing returns where you kind of get to this threshold of blog content volume and social activity. And obviously noise is noise. So we want to make sure that the substance and the quality is above our standards. But eventually it's like, dude, you've hit the kind of saturation point. You can post 30 times a day and it's going to give you the same results as 10 times a day. So let's dial it back. So it's once we start to see diminishing returns on our effort, we can kind of course correct accordingly. Key
And to
results.
to
Yeah,
quickly
please jump
add to
in.
that, yeah, to quickly add to that, I would say it's also good with doing a bit of research around what does the algorithm for the channel you're choosing prioritize right now. So when we're looking at how to avoid approaching diminishing returns too quickly with a certain channel, for example, with Instagram, if their algorithm prioritizes content in the feed from those accounts that are posting multiple times a day, you want to figure out like what is the minimum to still be accepted within that algorithm, and what is too much to then be shadow banned by the algorithm. And then you can start to understand and reverse engineer what does that point of diminishing returns look like.
Totally, because the algos are also punitive, right? So, and the main thing that they're trying to prevent is a bunch of shit flying on their platform. So it's like, oh,
Mhm.
like you posting 10 times a day and there's no engagement on any of those posts, you're in trouble. So, and I would be careful pandering to the algo. I think it's always good to be thoughtful about what kind of the mechanics or the big kind of elements of the algo are. But it's just
Yeah,
like focus on quality, punch out as much quality
always.
as you can, and just take direction from your audience, and you'll be rewarded in some way. Um,
Exactly. And then repurpose what's quality and most engaged. So
yeah.
that way, your information that you're putting out is always of quality.
Yeah, I figure engagement is the feedback loop, right? So if you have
Yep.
some social posts, whatever short form content it rips, you probably want to expand on that topic. That's a good candidate to really expand on and create some long form. And then the long form feeds back into repurposing the short form. These are all loops, and loops are generally pretty good, especially when there's, kind of user audience based feedback in the loop as well.
That's it.
All right, key results. We've got create a backlog of 50 SEO optimized blog titles, and then create long form blog posts, aka 1.2K words or so. So, call it 4 or 5 paragraphs. Beyond that, I don't know, just the tendency for content consumption and it's always like there's no such thing as too long. There's just only such a thing as like not good. So like if it's long, people will engage with it if it's really good, but generally speaking, attention spans are increasingly shorter and shorter. But anyway, so create long form blog posts off those SEO optimized blog titles. Then we want to establish for us in our context an independent extension brand for the current blog, and we'll talk about why that's there and what it means. And then establish a newsletter and subscriber sign up mechanism to capture and profile or segment subscribers. And then we wanted to identify 4x compelling users for a spotlight feature and generate a recap post with video and text. We'll talk about some themes there, UGC, video, media, etc. And then that all kind of culminates in increasing our social volume to daily posts on Facebook and Instagram. And then once the inputs are out there, we want to analyze our results and uncover if and how correlated our volume and frequency is to visitor traffic. Alrighty then. Cool. So I think the first thing to mention and again, this is more select commentary and less kind of a teardown of our results or a teardown of our approach thus far. I think our approach is pretty straightforward, and a lot of the commentary here is meant to kind of add color where it's useful. But I think the main thing is that we have an established blog and it is like a blog directly attached to our SaaS product. And when I say established, what do I mean? I mean about 100 posts, and we've done the foundational work on the SEO front. So we've got kind of 4x priority search terms or buckets that we're going after. And, if you're kind of getting started from scratch, they're like, oh my God, you need all this SEO research. It's like, I don't know if it's an invoicing thing for freelancers, just search it. Invoicing thing for freelancers, best invoicing thing for freelancers, and
mimic your own process.
You just be your users and put yourself in your shoes and be like, oh shit, okay, it looks like these 5 competitors are all over these, and then just start to find derivatives. Best invoicing thing for my specific niche in my market, or for those starting this business, for those who have a big team. And then you'll start to see, okay, here are some long tail keywords, meaning that they're kind of not down the middle, that are interesting. And when they become interesting, it's because it's like, all right, let's say invoicing tool for dog walkers that are just starting their business. That maybe that gets 100 searches a month. It's like, okay, cool. Let's own that. And then let's go find the other thing that gets 100 to 500 searches a month. Okay, cool. And then all of a sudden you add up the traffic from those long tail keywords, and it's like, boom, we've got hypothetically as much traffic from these keywords as we would have if we just went down the middle, like invoicing for freelancers, because all your competitors are going to be all over that. They're buying ads against that. They've got a big jump start on SEO, etc. But you can win with long tail. You just need to stack them together, and then it starts to accumulate to something that's interesting. Obviously, Ahrefs, super useful. You can just get analytics on all the traffic volume based on keyword. It'll suggest kind of keyword derivatives that are interesting. There's all kinds of tooling out there to help you, but it's, as much as $99 a month. So depends on your context, but there you go. And then the other thing to note is if you're kind of and the goal, right, for organic search is to have your content cover as much breadth and as much depth around a topic as humanly possible, because that's basically like a knot in the internet that Google will find, and they're like, oh, this person has talked about the ins and outs of this whole thing. It's all this knowledge is connected. We think that means they're authoritative in the topic, and they'll reward you by serving you up above the full top first page results, etc. But that shit will get old very quick, and it's like, best invoicing when you're on the run, best invoicing when you don't know what you're doing, best invoicing, bing, 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 bing. So something.
And then you see some sites start to do like, best of 2022. Then they just updated for 2023. It's like, the bots are catching on.
Totally. And so like you can use, hey, okay, these are, and ChatGPT is a great thought partner for this. So it's like, hey, here are our beats, our key search word terms. Here's a link to our blog, all our posts, so you can see what we've written about. I'd like to understand, like, what are some novel things or approaches to these topics that we haven't touched on? Okay, cool. What are the biggest trends in our category? Okay, that's interesting. How would we blend some of these trends and things that are really relevant at this point in time into our keyword search terms? Cool. And so that's how you keep it novel. So I think you can change the vantage point. Like, we can talk about this thing as if we're this human. We can talk about it as if we're this human. We can talk about it as if we're this human. We can talk about it as it changes over time. So you just want to find different paradigms, lenses, so to speak, to look at your topics, and that'll keep your stuff fresh. Because otherwise that game gets boring very quick. Anything to add on establishing a backlog of blog titles?
No, I think this was pretty solid. I definitely want to lean into the use of ChatGPT. I mean, that is just your Swiss Army knife for anything, but especially for this kind of context.
Totally. Or rewrite this title in 50 ways.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, it's like it's just endless.
You can't beat that. And then you just export it right into your RFs or SEM rush just to do the analysis against how many searches are hit for each. Like, you just can't move faster than that.
Totally. All right, so this is a heady kind of component of this topic. So like, and there was for a while in venture, it was like build an audience first and then have the audience basically tell you what to build and then light up the audience once the thing is built. Instead of in convention is the opposite. Build a thing, then try to build an audience, and then like try to go to market. And so it was kind of like build the cult and then sell them Bibles, you know?
Right.
And so I think there's some mental models here, like, you know, are you going to trust a blog that's written by Pepsi? I don't know, probably not. It's like they're just trying to sell me Pepsi, those sons of guns, you know? So the most authentic audiences are independent of brands because brands imply there's too much bias and incentive. Their incentive is to sell you shit. So how good can the content be? So no matter what, you probably want your content engine to be distance enough from the actual product where it can come off authentic. And obviously you want as much contribution from your users and from the audience as humanly possible to get their vantage points, because that's what you're trying to build, right? It's just a hub of perspective on the category that you serve. And then like, interestingly, like right, Sales Hacker in our day, they were like just this savage hub of, you know, thought leaders across go to market, sales, rev ops, et cetera. And they built this amazing thing. And outreach is like, hey, we're struggling to find growth. Why don't we just buy Sales Hacker? And boom,
Yeah.
now we've got built, like we acquire the audience and we can just pump distribution through them that way. So one option is to buy an audience straight up. In micro SaaS, you know, budgets are a function of revenues for the most part, and revenues are small because we're playing the micro SaaS game. So you probably need to build an audience of your own. But I'd be very thoughtful about distancing the audience from your product because it makes the audience more authentic. And you can still achieve your means and you can do it in a high integrity way. But just be thoughtful about, you know, I guess, you know, like what's even an example? I don't know, just anything that's like a total blog attached to a product where most of the blog is shameless promotion of the product. I wouldn't expect that content engine to buzz, and I wouldn't expect an audience to grow.
Yeah, because there's nothing around it that's thought leadership, nothing around it that leads to education. And to the Sales Hacker example, Insight Squared was another one that was very useful coming up in our sales days. And they also similarly got purchased out by this company called Mediafly. It's like these audiences are just getting bought up, dude.
100%. Cool. And then, so I guess this part will land right in your wheelhouse, Kev. But like, so we use HubSpot. That's kind of our spinal cord tech wise. That's our system of record, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like they have a savvy kind of content management system. But I would just say that the newsletter mechanics, an email newsletter, the mechanics of that generally should be considered independent of a blog. A blog is managing the content, hosting it, interlinking it, whatever. A newsletter thing is capturing subscribers and issuing emails. So now you've got email functionality involved, you've got deliverability, you've got email templates, you've got all that kind of stuff. And so just be thoughtful, like, all right, just because we have a blog doesn't mean we can light up a newsletter. And I guess as an extension of that, there's some really cool generative AI tooling on the newsletter side where it'll grab your best performing posts and pipe them in. It'll do some other cool stuff. So I guess what would you share on that front?
Yeah, so on on that front, I'd recommend whether you're using, HubSpot or another marketing email automation tool. Essentially, what would happen is to generate the email template itself. A lot of them utilize some type of generative AI integration now, whether it's ChatGPT or their own model to just generate the natural language of the email. But for, let's say, pulling in, posts that might already be featured on your blog, a lot of the templates now include RSS feeds. We're all familiar with RSS feeds from back in the day. So if you have, let's say, for example, a blog you'd like to subscribe to, or you want your own blog to essentially become an RSS feed, if you have it set up through a tool like HubSpot or WordPress, it's already a natural RSS feed. So you grab a link to that blog, you drop it in behind the newsletter template in HubSpot, and then you just tell it, hey, do I want to grab my most recent post or my most popular post? And that's a great way to continuously engage your audience, especially if someone, let's say one of your users, they might have visited your blog, they might have might have read a post before. But now that they have the information getting delivered into their inbox every day, that's another way to engage them. And it's a great chance for them to now reshare that content online, capturing another audience that you might not have naturally captured before.
Yeah, beautiful. Well said. All very, very good, tactical, executable, actionable stuff. All right, beauty. So the next, blending in user spotlights. So again, like this is back to user generated content. So like the holy grail is don't tell prospective users what your product does. Have existing users tell them, right?
Yep.
Because they're going to trust their peers, and those things are so much more authentic. And I guess more interestingly, people will use your SaaS in ways that maybe you didn't predict, and they're getting tremendous value out of it. So you don't want to put a chokehold on that. So for us, it's these spotlight interviews, and it just handing your users the mic and getting out of the way, and doing this via video and then repurposing that into snippets. That is just a whole new content, or a whole different content flywheel. And that plays really nicely with all the stuff that your camp's writing on the blog post, where it's like you want as much user generated content as humanly possible. Like best case scenario, your whole entire blog is just your users talking about why they got started, the hurdles they faced, the breakthroughs, the systems they use, how they et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like you want to grab the thought leaders from among your user base and give them the mic and get the hell out of the way. So we wanted to make sure that we were thoughtful there. And then lastly, or I guess almost lastly, is, ideally we treat our blog as like this honeypot or this big backlog that we can use to feed social. So ideally, the bigger the critical mass of your blog, the more stuff you have to repurpose and rip on social. And you can also use analytics on the blog posts that are performing the best to then inform social. You can use the analytics on the social that's performing the best to inform more long form. It's just this beautiful loop-de-loop-de-loo thing. But ideally, you want to have this kind of honeypot, or this whatever backlog, dumpster full of bullets you can shoot out there. So anyway, at least that's how we get down. And then lastly, obviously you want to analyze results. And I think the holy grail is like, hey, when we 2x'd our content volume and frequency, we saw a 20% increase in site traffic. Woo, okay, let's do it again. And it's like, hey, we got another 20% increase. Okay, let's do it again. We saw a decrease from where we're at. Oh shit, let's pull back. So again, with all these OKRs, you want to, I guess, begin with the end in mind and set a goal, which should be a function of improvement against base rates. And then you want to close the loop, analyze what you did, and have that inform next steps.
Boom, baby.
Boom.
I love that. I had one more thing to add.
Yeah.
And that's on a previous bullet for increasing social media volume. So in case, you get a nice handle of it and you say, hey, we want to do this again for that 20% increase. The best way to go about it is, again, always document your process, create a playbook out of it so it is repeatable. Now, once it's repeatable, you can look at tools like a Zapier, a Make, one of those where now you can connect your CRM. So put it like this: if you have your newsletter that's already pulling in your most popular posts on your blog, that newsletter email that gets sent to users can then get pulled in to Zapier, where it's seeing those articles, and now in the Zapier steps, it's connected to ChatGPT, so now it's repurposing those articles. So step 1, repurpose for Facebook. Step 2, repurpose for Instagram. And then from there, the final step, you have it drop it down into a spreadsheet or an Airtable. Your admin just has to go copy paste it, or you integrate it into your post scheduling tool for a fully automated end-to-end system.
Yeah, beauty. Systems, baby.
Systems.
Excellent. All right, y'all. That's a wrap for the love of the game. Kaylu, pleasure sharing the field of battle with you, my man. I'll still see you next week.
Always. Until next week.
All right, over and out. Cheers.